Let's say you've worked your whole life and you've got $1 million saved. Then comes the one question that actually keeps you up at night. How much can you pull out of that every year without running out? For about 30 years, the answer was simple: 4%. On $1 million, that's $40,000 the first year. Clean, easy, done. Here's the part nobody mentions. The man who invented that rule doesn't use 4% anymore, and the number he uses now is thousands of dollars a year higher. Meanwhile, another group of respected experts says the safe number is actually lower than 4%. Same $1 million, same retirement. The gap between those two answers is about $18,000 a year. So today, I want to show you what's really going on and which end of that gap is actually you. First, let's be clear about what the 4% rule even is, because most people have it slightly wrong. It's not take 4% every year. It's this. In your first year of retirement, you withdraw 4% of your savings. After that, you ignore the percentage completely. You just give yourself a raise each year to keep up with inflation. So $40,000 this year, a little more next year, a little more the year after. The promise is that historically, your money lasts at least 30 years. That's the whole rule. One starting number, then an inflation raise for life. Now, where did it come from? Not a bank, not a sales pitch. A financial planner named William Bengen, back in 1994. He did something nobody had really done. He tested it against history. He took every 30-year retirement window, going back to 1926. A simple portfolio, roughly half stocks, half government bonds. And he asked, what's the most you could have withdrawn every single time and never gone broke? Here's the part that changes how you should hear this rule forever. 4% was never the average. 4% was the worst case. It came from one brutal starting year, 1968, right before the worst inflation of the century. That unlucky retiree could take about 4% and just barely survive 30 years. Everybody else did better, a lot better. In most of history, the person taking 4% didn't run out at all. They died with more money than they started with, often 2 or 3 times more. So sit with that. The famous rule is built around the single ugliest decade in the data, on purpose. It's not a careful estimate. It's a worst-case floor. And that is exactly where people go wrong today. They treat 4% like a law of physics, fixed, permanent, true forever. It isn't. And the two people who study this most will tell you it isn't, in opposite directions. Let me show you both, because the disagreement is the whole point. Start with the inventor himself, Bill Bengen. In his newer work, finished in 2025, he raised his own number, not to 4%, to 4.7%. On $1 million, that's $47,000 a year instead of $40,000. Why the raise? He didn't decide the market got safer. He widened the portfolio. The original used just 2 things. Now he adds mid-size, small, and international stocks. More variety in his testing meant a higher safe number. But here's the honest part, he says out loud. 4.7 isn't a magic number either. Your real number depends on the day you retire, on how expensive stocks are, on inflation right then. And he admits he never personally followed a rigid 4%. He always adjusted.
Now, the other side. The research firm Morningstar runs this math fresh every year. And looking forward, not just backward, their safe starting number is lower. For 2026, it's 3.9%, just under 4. On your million, that's about $39,000 the first year. And notice this, their number moves. It's been as low as 3.3. It's been 4. Now it's 3.9. That alone tells you the truth. There is no single safe rate carved in stone. There never was. One quick, honest note before we go on, because it matters to your real life. That 4% is before taxes. It's a gross number. Money from a traditional 401k or IRA gets taxed as ordinary income when you pull it out. So $40,000 withdrawn is not $40,000 to spend. But don't panic about your tax bracket either. Being in the 22% bracket does not mean every dollar is taxed at 22. Only the dollars that reach that bracket are. The rest is taxed lower. Your real effective rate is gentler than the headline. So if the inventor says 4.7 and Morningstar says 3.9, who's right? Both. And the thing that decides which one is you isn't your portfolio. It's one behavior. Are you willing to adjust your spending in a bad year or not? That single answer is worth more than any fund you could pick. Let me make it concrete. Picture it. You're 62. You've got that $1 million. You want it to last 30 years. Here are your 3 honest choices. Choice 1, the rigid floor, about 3.9%, roughly $39,000 a year. You set it and you forget it. You never think about it again. It's also the lowest income. Choice 2, Bengen's worst case number, 4.7%, about $47,000 a year. A well-diversified portfolio, taken steadily. Choice 3, you stay flexible, and that can start as high as 5.7%. On your million, that's around $57,000 a year. $18,000 more than the cautious version. Now, how does anyone safely spend $57,000 when the careful number is 39? With something called guardrails. It's just common sense, written down as rules. You set an upper limit and a lower limit on your spending. After a great market year, you might give yourself a raise. After a bad one, you trim. And usually trimming just means this. You skip that year's inflation raise. You don't cut your life. You just don't give yourself the bump. Do that, and history says you could have started much higher. You can stretch it further, too. Delay Social Security, so a bigger guaranteed check covers more. Then your savings carry less of the load, and your safe rate climbs. But I want you to hear the trade clearly, because it's the real lesson. That extra $18,000 a year is rented. It is not owned. The rent you pay is being genuinely willing to tighten up in a down year. If you'll do that, you've earned the higher number. If you know honestly that you won't, then you belong closer to the floor. And most people
badly overestimate how flexible they'll actually be. A few honest caveats, because your situation isn't a spreadsheet. The whole rule assumes 30 years. Retire at 62 and live to 95, that's a longer run. Lean lower. Retire at 70 with a shorter horizon, and you can safely start higher. Social Security and any pension change everything, because every guaranteed dollar is a dollar your savings don't have to produce. And real spending isn't a flat line. Most people spend more in their early, healthy years, less in their 70s, then maybe more again for health later. Nobody actually lives on a flat raise.
There's one more risk worth naming. It's called sequence risk. A market crash in your first 5 years of retirement does damage a crash at year 25 never could, because you're selling to live while prices are down. That's the risk you don't control. But the withdrawal rate? That's the dial you do control. That's the whole reason we're here. So let me give you the real answer, the one that's actually true. It was never a single number. It's a band. Around 3.5% to 4% if you want a paycheck you never have to think about. 5% or more only if you'll truly flex when the market turns. The famous 4% rule isn't dead. It just was never what you were told it was. The number was never the point. Your behavior is. So here's the only homework that matters this week. Answer one question, honestly. In a bad year, would you actually skip your raise? Yes or no? Because that one answer, more than your savings, sets your real number.